One Piece chapter 1049. Now, in typical Oda fashion, this chapter for the most part revolved around a clash that spanned the entire chapter. Granted, we did deviate into Kaido's backstory a little bit, so the clash wasn't as long as the chapter, but this was very reminiscent of Luffy versus Doflamingo, in which a clash happens mid-air and usually knocks said villain back into the earth. While it is kind of repetitive, it is definitely very symbolic as well, right? But this chapter was very interesting for sure, because we get to see some of Kaido's backstory here. Now, I don't think this is the entire thing, just part of it, and sort of how he became the person that he is, right? And why war and strength is the thing that he values the most. We're finally coming to understand why Kaido is Kaido. But let's start from the beginning. But as usual, guys, I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video. Let's go for 500 likes, and subscribe if you're new here. Now, we start off with the clash between Luffy and Kaido mid-air, and as they were clashing, Kaido sparks up a conversation with Luffy in which he praises Luffy for making it this far, but ultimately Luffy would not be able to change the world. And then we kind of transition into Kaido's backstory here, in which we come to see him as a kid 46 years ago. And here it was revealed that Kaido was from the Vodka Kingdom, and apparently he was one of the strongest individuals at that point in time, in which at the age of 10 he was the strongest person on the island, which is insane, but it makes a lot of sense now, because it seems like fighting and war was something that he experienced when he was little, and so that's something that's deep rooted into his nature, and that's why it's a part of him till today. Now, just like most countries under the rule of the world government, the Vodka Kingdom was no different, in which they had to pay the heavenly tribute or else they would lose their human rights. And so participating in wars was one way they were able to survive and make a lot of money to sustain paying the Celestial Dragon. So Kaido in that sense was a huge asset for them, being that he was the strongest person on the island. But it seems like the Vodka Kingdom made a deal with the world government in which they would have Kaido draft and become a marine soldier in return for the Vodka Kingdom to have the right to participate in the revelry. Of course, Kaido not wanting to become a government dog, and so the only viable option for him at that point in time was to become rogue, or essentially become a pirate, which eventually leads to him getting his first bounty of 70 million. Now here we get something very interesting, because it ties back to what was said during Kaido's introduction back in chapter 795, right? Now here it was mentioned that he was captured several times, or he was captured but he ran away again, which means that they captured him but he keeps escaping. And it seems that whenever he got caught was whenever he was hungry, so he was using him being caught as a way to get food, essentially. And again, this explains why they mentioned that he was captured so many times back in his introduction, because Kaido would essentially use the Marines as a way to feed himself, so he would let himself get captured because he was hungry. And it seems that a lot of the things that was said about him happened when he was very young. And so as Kaido started to build his reputation, he started to become more famous and more known to more pirates in the world. And here we get to see his first interaction with Whitebeard, in which Whitebeard tells him if he's considered ever becoming a pirate, and that Rocks has been wanting to meet him. And this eventually leads to Kaido becoming a part of the Rocks pirates, with them becoming a much more powerful pirate crew. We then deviate to God Valley happening, in which this ultimately led to the destruction of the Rocks pirates and Rocks being defeated. Of course, this was outrageous at that point in time, given that Rocks was the most powerful pirate crew at that point, so a lot of people were baffled as to what happened. And here it is highly hinted that the Rocks pirate lost because of internal conflicts, because given that most of the top tiers on that crew had conquerors, there was a lot of people butting heads, so no one actually worked together, and ultimately that led to their demise, with Garp and Roger taking advantage of that, because normally they shouldn't have won that battle. And again, that all goes back to why Kaido doesn't want too much conquerors in his crew, right? The events of what happened at God Valley definitely had an impact on him, and why having too much conquerors on the crew might be an issue. And so after God Valley, it seems that Kaido would later on go on to form his pirate crew. Now, interestingly enough, it seems that he was already in contact with the old witch and already had plans on taking on Wano, and she was kind of his liaison to Orochi, so that makes a lot of sense now. But we also know that Kaido views Wano to be special, and he chose Wano for a specific reason, and perhaps that reason was something that he got from Zebek. And of course that all ties to Joy Boy and everything. So I do wonder what his true purpose is, because in this flashback he seems to be aware that he is not Joy Boy, and in his conversation with King he seems to know who this individual is, and that Joy Boy is most likely the individual that can defeat him in the future. And of course, this scene goes hand in hand with the clash that's going on between Luffy and Kaido, with Kaido telling Luffy what kind of world would he be able to make, and Luffy responds by saying a world where his friends can eat to their heart's content. That is the world that Luffy wants to make, and it ends off with Luffy landing a final blow on Kaido, sending him back to the earth to the point that he goes way underground. And I believe we also get to see Kaido lose one of his horns. Now, I've got to say that as short as that flashback was, it was really good. Even though there's a lot of time skips in the flashback, it gave you an idea as to the person Kaido is and how he became this person and how deep-rooted war and strength is in his nature. Because these things, as he was growing up, was very important in the world that he lived. And of course, the events of God Valley more than likely solidified that for him. So with Kaido, we're seeing his character become more fleshed out here. And again, even though it was a lot of time skip, you still get a sense of his character in its entirety, right? So again, dope backstory here for Kaido. But again, I'm not sure if we're gonna get more, because I think a lot of people were expecting to see rocks at the very least and his connection to rocks. So I don't know if we're gonna get that. It highly depends on what's gonna happen moving next, because again, we don't know if this fight is truly over. As much as I want to believe that, there's a lot of evidence that support this fight actually going on for much longer. But I think one thing that is very clear from this is that Kaido, during those last moments of his clash with Luffy, more than likely realizes that Luffy is Joy Boy. So if Kaido does get up, the context of this fight is not going to be the same. I think there's going to be a very interesting interaction between him and Luffy, with him finally realizing that Luffy is the chosen person, that he is Joy Boy, a person that he's been searching for a very long time. And perhaps the whole reason he came into Wano was because he knew Joy Boy was going to come to Wano. So that could be one reason he chose Wano specifically. There might be other reasons as well, but that might be part of it. So a very interesting chain of events, and I definitely liked Kaido's little backstory that we got here, right? Even though it's not a lot, I think it definitely gave us a sense to what Kaido's character is and his ideals and what made him the person that he is. Now, is the fight truly over? I am not sure, right? I am not sure. I'm 50-50 on this, because it seems like there's still something missing. And this goes back to Oda's interview about Luffy defeating Kaido, in which he said that a strong punch would be something that wouldn't be satisfactory to the fans, right? And so he said that he was going to figure out a way to make this happen. And essentially that's what we got. We got a really strong punch from Luffy. Of course, Luffy is using Conqueror's Haki and Awakening, but at the end of the day, it is still a strong punch, right? Even though Luffy has all this new abilities, right? It is still a strong punch. It is no different from what happened with Doflamingo versus Luffy, right? So you would think something a lot more special would happen here, given that Kaido is just on a different tier when it comes to villains, and in terms of not only just strength but also importance in the story. He's tied to Joy Boy and all these important characters of the past, so you would think the resolution would be a lot more special. But again, I'm not too mad at what we got in this chapter, but I think there might be more in store for us here. But we'll have to see where Oda is going to take this. Of course, there's Kaidos Awakening, which is a point of discussion that's going on in the community right now, because again, we don't know if Kaido has actually awakened, because again, it hasn't been mentioned. Whenever awakening is being used, Oda always makes due process to tell us that said character is awakened, and we never actually saw that with Kaido. A lot of people think that this flame form that we saw in the previous chapter and in this chapter was Kaido's awakening, but in reality that could just be a move, you know, like a skill set that he used there, right? Not actually awakening. But a lot of people don't like this idea because they feel like it's going to drag out the fight even more. And again, Luffy does not have enough strength to contend with Kaido awakening again, so it's something that a lot of people don't like, but it is still in the realm of possibilities. And again, based on Oda's words in that interview, there's a possibility that this might happen, so we'll see how things play out. Now, apart from the Kaido versus Luffy clash, we did have some other interesting parts in this chapter. We come to see Momonosuke actually use the flame clouds to save Onigashima from crashing, so that was a dope moment for Momonosuke. He finally did it after about 20 chapters of him trying and trying and trying, so that's great for Momo. We'd also see that the CP0 agent, the last one that wasn't defeated, escaped from Wano, or flew away from Wano, in which he more than likely is going to report all he witnessed in Wano to the government or the Gorosei or whichever, and then the Gorosei are going to take action from then on. He more than likely witnessed Kaido's defeat here, supposed defeat, so he knows who is responsible for defeating Kaido, and again, that's going to translate to bounties and all of that, right? So the bounties post Wano is going to be absolutely insane, right? And I think everyone's going to get a fair treatment because, again, he knows who defeated who and is aware of everything that transpired for the most part on Onigashima. But overall, this was a dope chapter. I would like to hear what you guys think will happen moving forward because, again, we're in the area of uncertainty as to what comes next. Even though it seems very obvious right now, there might be twists and turns as we move forward, with Oda always subverting expectations, right? That's very typical of him. But again, we'll see what happens. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video, comment down below what you guys think, subscribe if you want to see more One Piece content on this channel. You can follow me on Twitter at FerroSpace. But it is Ferro, guys, and I will see you folks later. Peace.